Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, so I'm sitting here and I am talking to Erick Ericksen. And Erick is the winner of the Publicly Challenged giveaway that we did to the Western Hunting Summit. So I'm super excited to talk to him and see what his thoughts were and what he learned along the way. And on top of that, Erick also got a really cool pack from INITIAL ASCENT. So I'm kind of curious to see what his thoughts are on that as well. So Erick, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Erick Ericksen. I grew up in Vermont. Lived there for about 30 years. Worked as a canine officer over there before heading over to New York. I currently work for the state of New York doing Medicaid fraud investigations. I have two girls, 11 and 12, soon to be 12 and 13. Their current softball coach, which is fun. So I started really getting into the Western hunting due to my father's diagnosis with Parkinson's about 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, somewhere around there. My father and I, we used to do a lot of hunting together. Pretty much every year we would go away at least one place on vacation to go hunt. And it was always in the Northeast. We always dreamed about going out west. And he worked really, really hard throughout the years. Didn't really want to leave his job for much longer than a week. He was always worried about things. He was a manager where he was. He was always worried about things leaving, and he was always big about, creating a nest egg for us kids. So he didn't go on a lot of vacations. So back in 2010, I believe, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And it pretty much took him down pretty rapidly within like 3 or 4 years after that, where he was no longer hunting. And I just said to myself, I'm like, it's going to get to the point where I don't want to miss out on opportunities. I want to be able to go experience those things that him and I always talked about doing. So that's what brought me into diving headfirst into the Western hunting and trying to educate myself as a person from the Northeast to get out there.
No, I think that's pretty cool. Especially knowing that, you saw what happened to your dad and your time, you realize that your time is precious and your time is short. And if you don't get to do those things, it's going to be in the back of your mind, kind of lingering and always wanting, or regretting that you didn't do that. So I think it's pretty cool that you took the step and kind of got yourself into better shape and decided that you wanted to pursue that. So kind of tell everybody, like, what have you done out west so far? I mean, elk hunts and what?
So back in 2007, right around the time when he was just before he was first diagnosed, my cousin had got a hold of me and we wanted to go out to Colorado. So I grabbed my Cabela's whitetail backpack and all my scent clothes and thought I was going to go out and conquer the woods out there. And we got a second season or third season Colorado rifle tag. And what we were told before we went out there was, listen, you got to get up near the top to this one area. You got to just pick a spot and sit there all day, just like whitetail hunting. So him and I figured, we can definitely do this. So I ended up getting a few things, just a backpack. I think I got it off of, one of the hiking websites, had no real legit frame. I don't even think we had brought a stove with us. We thought we were going to just warm up some cans of like Hormel chili over the fire and live off of protein bars for the week. And we got up there and it was in the sunlight, it was 100 degrees. And at night it was down to 0. It was miserable.
That's
we
rough.
had we had frost inside the tent. I had to keep like knocking it off, and we gave up after about like 3 or 4 days doing that.
Yeah.
And I was in really good shape, but coming from the Northeast, going out there, I we weighed our packs. My pack was like close to 100 pounds just for the gear we were bringing up there.
That's crazy. But you do that. You do that on your first time around. You throw
Yeah,
a bunch of stuff in that you think you might need, you might want, and next thing you know, you got your whole house with you, or your whole truck with you anyway,
yep.
and you just end up miserable hauling around a bunch of extra weight that you don't need. So, what kind of happened after that? Then was there any more excursions since then, or
No, so everything kind of slowed down. I ended up went on vacation with my dad a couple more times. We hunted Maine and northern Vermont. My dad's last hunt, he actually got a really, really nice buck out of northern Vermont, tracking it in the snow. Um, After that, I ended up having my 2 children, so things kind of went on hold for a while. I was still
understand
hunting all the
that?
time, you know, whitetails and bear and the typical Northeast turkeys and stuff like that. And I just we kind of took a pause, and then in 2018 I started putting back in for tags, and I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. So we didn't draw anything that first year. The second year we put in for Montana, and we drew a 920 archery tag. Um, and at that point in time, I was all in. I was listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, and I got a membership to Go Hunt. And I started really figuring out my gear issues that I had from the prior hunt, just through all the information that I didn't have back in 2007 when I first 2007
Right?
2008 when I first started.
Yeah, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I don't think I may have heard of them, and it's kind of funny because you get back, you start learning. I started really digging into different things, and then I found podcasts, and I was like, wow, man, you know, all this information on there. And then it started to be the point where there was people that I wanted to talk to and ask my questions and ask questions that I knew other people had, and next thing you know, it snowballed into my own podcast. But it was. Definitely a learning experience that drove me in the direction that I'm headed now, and hopefully all those mistakes in the past can help me with my success. And on top of that, trying to put myself around people, like going to the Western Hunting Summit and learning from those people. Um, Hopefully that could advance my, ability to hunt and my knowledge base. And I thought it was such a cool experience that when I went there and I knew that if I was going on an elk hunt this year, I wouldn't be able to go to the Western Hunting Summit because I didn't have enough time to take the vacation time for that and still have time for family and everything else. So I wanted to share it with somebody, and I wanted to share it with somebody that really wanted to go and learn. And that's through your essay was how you were picked. And so I'm kind of curious though, just what was your take on it, man? Was it almost overwhelming with all the knowledge that was thrown at you, or just, what, what'd you like about it? What did you not like? What was just, what's your consensus on it?
Honestly, it was an amazing experience. I learned so much from so many talented individuals, and everybody there, every single person there got along great. The instructors were, I could just pull them aside, just eating lunch with them or eating dinner with them, and talk to them and share my experiences and have them share their experiences to further my education on my learning curve to be a better outdoorsman when it comes to hunting the West, something that I'm not used to.
Yeah. I thought the coolest part when I went there was, um, we did a little bit different than you guys did on your summit because I think you were kind of stationed and based um, at the ranch, I think. And then so we went and we spent our first day, we gathered up and hiked up onto the mountain and stayed up on a glassing spot on the mountain and spent the night there. And then the next morning we got up and did a few things and then we hiked out. But that morning, I thought, just one of the coolest things was me and another guy were sitting there. We were eating breakfast. We were talking to Brian Barney, who is just a treasure trove of knowledge and just willing to share it and talk so much about it. And I think that's why Ryan Lampers, he's not that great in a group setting, and he knows that. So he brings in people like Brian and some of these other guys to really voice things that he normally wouldn't address to a group and say. But if you pull Ryan aside and you sit there and talk to him, he'll talk to you and have a great conversation. You can learn a lot from him. But Brian Barney is one of those guys that totally blew my mind. I didn't really know who he was. And the guy goes, "You got any questions? Make sure you ask Brian." And I was like, "Okay." And so we were there eating breakfast, and I was just talking, and we were looking at the other side of this draw, and like, how would, if an elk was over there, how would you approach it? What would you do? Would you wait until you bedded them down? And, all these different things. Would you make a move on them and try and catch them before the timber? And every single thing that we threw at them, not only could you visualize it because it was right there in front of you, but just the knowledge that was dropped on you along the way, it was absolutely amazing. Did you have kind of any experiences like that, or what was kind of some of the teaching moments for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just, I took in everything that I could get, and a lot of times, after everything was over and done with, there was just so much free time to be able to. I say free time. We were rocking and rolling from about 6:30 in the morning until good 8 o'clock at night every single day with stuff.
Nice.
And just not to get on a tangent, but how my entire weekend started was we really had a hard time with transportation. So we were going to figure out a way that I was going to get there because I just couldn't find a rental. So I fly in the airport, and this guy comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, are you heading to the Western Hog Summit?" I said, "Yeah, I'm heading." This guy named Nate from California.
Nice.
So shout out to him. He's like, "I think we got some room. If you want to ride over with us, we're going to get a van from U-Haul," because they couldn't find a rental car either.
Nice.
So his two buddies show up, Phil and Scooter, and they're from Arizona, and they go to U-Haul, and they come back, and all they had was a 2-seater box truck.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So here we are loading up all the gear, and I ended up sitting in the back with Scooter, and we ended up. I mean, it was just like riding in the back of a rider van.
So wait a minute, you guys ended up saying, "Heck with it, we'll take the box truck."
Yeah, we had no choice. Everybody else was like completely like out.
That's awesome. So,
yeah.
One, you had plenty of room for gear.
Scooter and I were sitting here sweating to death in the back of the box truck for like a good hour and 15 minutes. We got a couple breathers, stopped at Walmart and got some extra, food and supplies and stuff like that. That's how the whole weekend started.
You probably didn't need a whole lot of food. I mean, they feed you pretty good out there.
Oh, they did for sure.
Yeah, like Mark and Cody Rich were there cooking up. I think we had like bear and elk fajitas on the mountain or something like that, and then breakfast was bear biscuits and gravy, and I mean it was just. And then the food never stopped from there. Doc Hillary was cooking a bunch and made a bunch of really good healthy stuff. I finally figured out her banana bread recipe, so if you ever need that, I found that because it was pretty good. Because I have some dietary issues, so it was pretty cool that I could go somewhere and they're feeding you, and you could still eat. A lot of times, like even at work, they'll order food or, whatever. And I just bring my own because it's such a pain in the butt to have to try and know or whatever. But, virtually everything there was gluten free and, a lot of it was grain free and just, so it made it pretty easy for even like a guy like me that's hard to have around when you're trying to feed everybody. But it was pretty amazing. So what was the favorite thing that you had that they cooked for you? Was it the birch barrel stuff or?
So Birch Barrel did most of the cooking, along with they had some kitchen help. They had Mark Livesey's wife Amy she worked her butt off to provide the food and everything. And the first morning, our first meal happened to be sausage gravy and biscuits, which is like my apps. Just like totally addicted to that. I'll order it every time I see it. When I'm in the backcountry, that's the same thing.
The old
I'll
Mountain
have the
House.
pinnacle food. No, so Mountain House is decent. It's pretty good, but I ran into this company called Pinnacle Food Company,
Oh yes, the
and
jalapeno biscuit.
they're oh my god, that stuff is so good.
See,
I
I
think I
can't
could
eat any
probably
of that.
pack. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. So, like, my thing is if I want to do that, then I make my own. So um, I really learned, and like Mark and I, became buddies, and we really talked about, making our own food, and he does a lot of that. So I got a lot of advice from him, and shared some knowledge that I discovered along the way with him, and we ended up doing 2 whole episodes. It was so long I had to divide it in 2 parts, but all on your own food prep for that. But no, dude, if I could eat the Pinnacle one, that sounds amazing. So without a doubt, it sounds really good.
Yeah, yeah. And funny thing is, I was re-listening to that podcast today because I got a dehydrator. I got all the stuff really to do it. I just got to get the bags and get the oxygen
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, you probably don't even
packets.
have to throw those in if you're going to be using them soon. But if you want to keep them for, a couple months or something like that, I'd probably throw the
Yeah,
oxygen absorbers in there. And it actually, when you seal it, it actually compresses it more so it's not taking up more
yeah.
space in your bag. But the key to that is always throw more oxygen absorbers than the actual recommended in there, so it'll actually really suck it down. Kind of like the Mountain House, the space ones or whatever they are, the ones that are like
Yep.
really shrunk down. And so, sorry I
Yeah.
interrupted you on that one, but so you had bear
No, no, that's
biscuits
all
and
right.
gravy, I'm guessing, or maybe it was elk. I don't know. It depends on who made the
Well,
sausage.
it tasted so good, I didn't even tell where the meat was from. But I'm sure it was something wild.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of that being fed. The other thing I thought was really cool was Birch Barrel. They put some like chips in there afterwards and smoked some peaches and hollowed it out and put some like cinnamon ice cream or something on top.
Oh,
That
we didn't have that, but
Yeah,
that sounds good.
that was freaking awesome. I was like, man, that's really good. That was one of the things that I remember. I was like, man, I need to go home and try and make that. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
they had like an apple and ice cream, but it was the same thing. They did it in the birch barrels.
That sounds good too. I'd take that with in a heartbeat. um,
I actually didn't feel guilty eating it either after all the calories we burned every day.
so who did the workouts with you on that one? Was it?
So we did Mountain Tough,
Oof.
and I'll be honest with you. So I did some of the stuff with Dan Staten from Elk Shape, and his stuff was pretty gnarly, but Mountain Tough was like a whole nother level.
Made you feel like you were gonna go into Bud's training or something?
Oh, it was awful.
I ended up not doing
So
the
we
workout for um while I was on the mountain. I must have like kneeled on a rock or something, and I woke up that next morning and my knee was all swollen, and I ended up having to go. I ended up getting Doc Hillary actually diagnosed. Well, gave me a recommendation, didn't actually diagnose because of whatever professional reasons or whatever, but told me, she's like, honey,
yeah.
you need to go get that looked at. I'm pretty sure that's cellulitis. So went, got it looked at. Sure enough, it was infected and inflamed. So I did
Oh
the
no.
like the archery workout, but when it came outside to doing Dan's workout, which I don't think I've ever done 100 air squats in my life, but I think it was 100 air squats, 100 push-ups, or maybe it was 200, I think. So then you had to
Do you
split it
guys do the
between.
Murph?
It's basically a Murph with a bunch of sprints in there instead of a a 2 mile run, and it was a lot. Yeah, but
See, normally it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but considering I'm coming from about a 800 to 1200 elevation,
yeah,
and then being up there in the 6,000,
that's me. I'm
they had
408 where I'm at, so I'm pretty low.
oh, you're even lower than
Yeah.
me. So Mountain Tough they had 8 levels going out, and it was probably about 100 yards. So it was broken out about 25 yards in between. Or no, about maybe it was longer than it was probably 15 yards or so in between. And you started off with 25 burpees. Then you went to get to the next level, and you were in a team of like 3. To get to the next level, then you had to do jumping lunges, and then you had to do air squats to a jump, and there was
Jeez.
25 of each of those. And then you'd have to lunge to each next level. You had to finish out the 8. And then in order to go back either direction, you had to do a suicide. So you had to run to each flag and back, flag and
Whew.
back, flag and back. Then when you're on the end, and you got to do 5 more burpees. Then you got to go back, back and back. And then they start doing the upper, which is push-ups, which honestly, I always rocked push-ups and no matter how many PT tests, that was one thing I never had to worry about.
Push-ups are my
But after
Achilles
doing
heel.
all that, well, I'll tell you, after doing all that other stuff beforehand, I was having a hard time with even the push-ups.
Yeah.
And then we'd rotate into some rows, some body weight rows, and finish it off. So when we finished off, everybody thought we were done. When we got to the end, Ara from Mountain Tough was like, "Listen, one of your teammates broke their leg. You need to carry them." And it was like 200 yards out and 200 yards back. We had to carry the person as a team. Now we couldn't switch off who was the victim. We had to, or the person that was injured. So between it was me and 2 other guys, we had to carry him back 200 yards and back 200 yards. And then when we finished, we thought we were done, and I was like, it happened again, and we had to go back and forth. And honestly, I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, this is exactly what used to happen at the police academy. Like I looked him in the eye, I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yep.
So needless to say, you guys were smoked when you were done. But
oh, so bad, so bad.
Yeah. So so you had, what was it? It was Joel Turner there, right? And
Yep.
he was doing rifle instruction and archery instruction, right?
Yep, correct.
How did that go?
It went well. So I'd had Joel as an instructor once before, so I was kind of used to his style of instructing, and honestly, that's kind of how I've always been through my career, having that kind of instructing. He definitely changes the way I was doing things, because I was a capable shot. I was a capable shot out to 60, 70 yards. But I understand that I can do more and do better if I adapt his principles into my current shooting style. So it was really a matter of having him there to, push me to that next level, and to try to, I'm going to go backwards a little bit before I can go forwards again. And it was just me coming to that reality that that's what I needed to do to get to that next level, because he's an amazing shot.
Yeah, there's no arguing that for sure. So what kind of described like his instruction personality to maybe somebody that doesn't actually know who Joel Turner is?
So he's very militaristic,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean that's who he is. That's his character. That's part of his profession. It's something I'm used to, but it's definitely not something other people are used to. I mean, he will get in your face to a certain degree to make sure that you are doing what you need to be doing. And if you get to the point where you're actually doing a good job at what you're doing, he's going to throw a monkey wrench into there, whether it's taking an arrow and tapping your hat or, you know,
Flicking your
saying
earlobe.
something. Yep. Trying to get you to screw up, but to get you to that point where you need to be. And when we went into the rifle aspect of things, we didn't spend a whole lot of time. I actually wish we had kind of spent a little more. Um, he put us in positions where we weren't comfortable to shoot. And that allowed me to, instead of having a steady rest, which I normally would try to do, whether it's, up against a tree or, on a bench or laying prone, or, I mean, he had us in a real uncomfortable position where our reticles were going all over the place. And, he said, just trust the process, don't worry about where your sights are going, because you're naturally going to go back to that position. And you really didn't have much of a choice in those positions. You were just all over the place. There was no way of really keeping yourself square.
So when you're saying those
So
positions, are you talking like seated or some kind of awkward
yeah,
seating or something?
so it was an really awkward seated position where we just took our front arm, and just laid our rifle onto there on top of our knee, not really allowing our forearms to kind of hold up the gun. It's more like just putting it in the crease of the elbow.
Hmm.
And then we did another one where we were standing.
Standing is the one that I think would get me the most. You
So
know,
I was actually more comfortable standing. It was the sitting one he had us do was the one that felt really odd to me.
hmm. See, like I feel that sitting, no matter how uncomfortable or awkward, you're always going to find something or some type of leverage with your body to like find that anchor point, or you know what I mean, to find that brace that you need, that anchor. But standing, you don't really have that. That's pretty much just like your upper body bracing that shot. To me, I feel like that would be more awkward. Now, I'm not saying I can't take like a quick, you know, standing shot at something, but to take the initial shot at something, I feel like that would not
Yeah.
be a good position for me.
So how I was taught to shoot standing rifle was always to have your elbow in a sling, have your elbow against your body, have everything real stiff, have the stock in close to your shoulder. And he actually showed us a different way where our elbows are up more, holding on as far forward onto the stock, and then having our other elbows up. And surprisingly, it was pretty steady without having my elbow in the sling at all.
That's pretty
And
interesting.
it was like a 25 or a 250-yard shot, or 225 shot.
So would
And
that be more
I
like a carbine practice? You know, like shooting how when you're standing shooting a carbine or something like that, to where you're
yeah,
kind of,
yep,
you get the like a C grip, and that way you're kind of placing your shot in that zone before you actually even get there.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
not your
interesting.
typical. I think most of us learn, using our sling to have that extra brace and putting it against, you see the Olympic shooters, they're,
Hmm.
have their forearms in, and, a lot of the hunters, at least that I grew up with, we were always taught to have our elbow in the sling. And so we have a stiff arm because our elbow is tucked into the sling and up against our stock.
Right, just like even shooting prone, putting your elbow in that sling and getting it tied up against you and tucked back into the crease of your shoulder and all that kind
Yep.
of stuff. Yeah, definitely. So that's interesting, man. Matt, now it kind of makes me want to have to go take some lessons from Jill Turner on archery and that. But so what was like the furthest shot you guys did, like a 1250 or something, or did you push it way out there?
No, so I don't know whether there was a scheduling issue or what it was, but we only were doing offhand shots out to 200 and 225.
Okay.
Um, but it was to mostly deal with the process and not necessarily deal with trying to get accurate shots downrange.
Makes sense. If you learn the fundamentals, you can take them with you and practice them and apply them. So
Yep.
that definitely makes sense. So, did you bring your own rifle, or did you just jump on a gun when you were there?
No, so I ended up bringing. I have a Browning X bolt with a Leopold BX5 HD. I brought that in 28 nozzle.
Very
Although I
nice.
did have a hard time finding ammunition for it.
So was unknown munitions there for that class, or was that just the rifle summit? Maybe I'm thinking of, but I know unknown munitions was supposed to be there with ammunition, so you wouldn't have a hard time. But 28 Nosler is kind of a not that common. I mean, I'm not saying it's not common because it actually is,
Right.
but not as common as your 300 or 338 Win Mag or something like that. But
Yeah.
or 7 millimeter stuff like that. So were they
Yeah.
there
So
with
they weren't.
ammo?
No, they weren't there. That
Okay.
it's probably. I think the Rifle Summit probably has a lot more intrinsic, more details and more events. Um, we were a combo. We only did like a 2 hour session on the rifle. The rest of it was all archery stuff.
Yeah. I kind of find though that the archery, I'm more drawn to the archery the more I do it, and I kind of gravitate away from picking up that gun so much. I don't know if it's just the fact that I know I have to stay close within range of that animal, and
Mm-hmm.
something. There's something to it that keeps pulling me back. The quietness of it, I'm not really sure. And I just drew a really awesome deer tag too. It took me 4 years to get the tag. I finally got it from the state of Illinois, and it's a shotgun tag. But I might actually take my bow instead of the shotgun while I'm hunting the tag. I don't know. I'm kind of torn about that because I'm sure I'll be ticked off at myself if I end up getting a 70 or 80 yard shot and on a buck of a lifetime, which is a pretty good possibility out there. So I don't know. I'm still torn about that one. Luckily, I've got
Yeah,
plenty of time.
they definitely got some bruisers out there. I've always been an archery guy. I mean, I started with rifle. My first deer was with a muzzleloader. My second one was with a bow. I got like two or three more after that before I got my first rifle deer. So, um, my big push really to get into the archery was just because I like being out in the woods alone. And I
Yes,
know that now it's gotten to the point where it's kind of like an in thing, but still, even out west, if you're going to draw tags, it's going to be archery tags are going to be the easier ones to draw typically that I've seen.
I have learned that the muzzle loader is starting to become an easier one to get as well. After looking at different draw data and stuff like that, you can get, especially in like Arizona and even Colorado. I think some of them, and maybe because a lot of people don't want to hunt Colorado with the muzzleloader because you can't have any modern stuff on it or even a scope or anything. So it makes it to where a lot less people do it. And I think it was like some of the ones I was looking at were like 5 point units, and with the muzzleloader it was like one or two. So something to keep in mind. But
Yeah. So this year I actually put in for probably 5 or 6 muzzleloader tags in different states. And in years past, I never put in for it. So, because we knew I kind of had a game plan of where I thought I was going to go or had a very good chance of going. So we were just looking at just trying to do something later, around the October timeframe instead of the September timeframe.
nice, nice. So what was your biggest like aha moment or something that you had a preconceived notion in your head or something, and you kind of learned from that? Like mine was when Cody and Ryan were talking about calling. And you always hear people calling and doing like a locator bugle, and at the end of it, they'll do like a big long chuckle and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I thought in my head when you're calling. You kind of needed to do, and totally false. Just get it out there and hold and maintain that high note as long as you possibly can, and just get that out there so he'll hear that one note and come back at you with another bugle. And to me it was like, whoa, okay, man, I was really thinking about that wrong. And just kind of the different calling things that they talked about that I really didn't have an idea of or know that much about. So I'm kind of curious, like maybe if you had kind of a moment like that while you were out there.
So what kind of got driven home to me was there's numerous ways that you can do to get the job done. Brian Barney, he's almost strictly uh,
Spot and
spot and
stalk,
stalk.
yeah.
He doesn't even care. He says he doesn't even carry a call with them anymore. I know I hunted an area in Montana 3 years ago, and it had such a small herd, they were not talking at all. And I'm sitting here ripping bugles and trying to do cow calls, and I'm like, I can't believe they're not answering. I ended up hunting them just like whitetails, really. Um, and then you got Joel Turner. Joel Turner is really big on trying to not be intimidating, to do a lot of uh, cow calls, calf calls, um, some just uh, social type bugling to get in real close. And then Cody Wilson was there, and he taught the elk calling portion this time, and he was very aggressive. But he, again, just like you and I, like you mentioned, he does not, not like Corey Jacobson or some of these other guys that are really talented, and it works for them. He doesn't. He cuts everything off. He doesn't add a lot of clunking, and he
Yeah.
just throws out the indicator and drops it.
Hmm. Interesting. So what was your kind of approach before, or what was your notions on that? Did you kind of have a real thought process behind it, or you just thought kind of throw it at them and see what sticks and try and get them to come in, or
Yeah. So the first time, I've only been on one elk hunt where I've actually been able to do any calling. I've only been on two total so far. And the first one was that Colorado rifle issue.
fiasco? I'm familiar with
Yeah,
that. I know.
fiasco.
And that's pretty much how I think everybody needs to cut their teeth and really
Yeah,
work out those bugs to the point where they're like, "Wow, I'm an idiot. I had no idea." And if you don't ever go out there, or you have some experience before you go out there, well then whatever, that's fine. But you need to be Joe Midwest or Joe East Coast going out there thinking he's chasing whitetail, but they're just bigger, and go out there with that approach, and it's going to be such a humbling experience when you come back. If you want to go back after that, you're going to educate yourself. I hope
yeah.
everybody does. And
So
it sucks you're wasting money on a tag, but you got to look at it
hey,
as a knowledge and a lesson learned. School of hard knocks is the best way to learn, I think.
I am very goal oriented, so I always want to try to fill that tag. But to be honest with you, anytime that I am out west, and my last two elk hunts, I haven't filled tags, I still had an amazing time.
Oh yeah.
Um, the last time we were out in Montana, I ended up I was more so the Corey Jacobson approach, where every like 150 yards I was just ripping bugles, doing some glunking afterwards. And I mean, who knows? I probably sound awful for all I know. I do I do all the calling for my partner and I. I do all the e-scouting and stuff like that, and I learned a lot about that this week too.
Wow.
Um, so
Yeah.
so this is so it really drove it home that I have other things to do other than what I was doing. Especially talking to Brian Barney. The area that I hopefully I'm going to go back to this fall that I'd been in before. Um, I really think I'm going to try to just strictly do spot and spot. I don't even know if I'm even going to take a call out.
Yeah.
If we go to some of the other areas that I want to go to, then I probably will do some more calling. So I think when you have all the tools in your chest, you're going to be able to adaptively use them to certain scenarios. And I don't think anybody is 100% correct in how they're doing things. You really need to just use a little bit of everything
Oh
when
yeah.
it works.
That's what, like, everybody's approach is different. but in the end, it may just be the way, like Brian Barney is, spot and stalk. Ryan Lampers, he's a spot and stalk kind of guy, but he's not beyond ripping off a locator bugle to just see what's out there and then kind of hone in on that animal. And then, getting in the timber and start raking. And like, I'd heard about raking and I'd kind of seen it, but never in the detail that they described it when I was there, and the amount of effort that they tell you, how much to put into that. And that's something you don't really see talked about a whole lot, is just raking like crazy. I mean, one of the stories that I heard was Dan Staton talking about the amount of raking Lampers does. And so one of his buddies kind of stumbled up upon Ryan or something like that, and they were hunting, and they were way back far deep, I think in Washington or something like that. And he's like, dude, I just ran into another guy over there. And he's like, yeah, all the way out here? That's pretty far. Is he alone? And he's like, yeah, I think he's alone. And he's like, was he any good? And he's like, I think he's real good. I mean, he was really raking, and I thought it was a bull, and I went over and checked it out. And so, and I think he was saying they were like 10 miles back or something, because Dan's one of the guys that takes, dirt bikes a lot and gets into a lot of places that a lot of people don't go. But so just kind of, things like that I'd never really heard of, or heard the amount of raking that people do versus, because I'm going to be honest, I've never heard a bull raking because I haven't got in on one yet. But that's something I definitely know is now in my arsenal, and I want to do. And after talking to a few other people, they say, depending on where you're at, though, if you're around a bunch of deadfall and it's rotten stuff, you might want to actually bring a big old like axe handle or something to actually rake on things with, because you might not get. So it's just things like that along the way I thought was so helpful to kind of learn. What else was like some of your takeaways on that kind of stuff?
Same thing about adding the raking in. When it comes to the elk hunting aspect of things. And we did learn quite a bit about the e-scouting.
So
that's one thing that
let's dive into that, because
okay,
Mark Livesey is freaking. There is none like him when it comes to that. I'm not saying people don't e-scout or whatever, and I'm not making fun of him, but the man is a total freaking nerd when it comes to looking at maps. And that's cool, because he's the one who figures all this stuff out, and then he puts it in his course, treelineacademy.net. Awesome course. Believe it or not, and he's going to be mad at me, but I still haven't gotten 100% through it because he keeps adding stuff. So my goal this month is to sit down and finish it so I can finish my e-scouting. But what I mean, had you ever even heard of the whole Treeline Academy, or looked at it before, or done any of that stuff? Or
so in podcasts I have in the past, I think I looked at a couple of his very first YouTube videos, but I never really took it. I won't say I didn't take it seriously. I just never put the time and effort into it. So the first year I went out to Montana, and again, I do all the planning for our hunts, me and my partner. And I was looking at trailheads. I was looking at clearings. I was looking for like north-sided slopes. And that was pretty much it. Like nothing else. None of the little tricks and stuff that, and he really didn't have a lot of time. I mean, he only had 4 hours. There's so much stuff this weekend, this past week, 4.5 days. So I already told him, I went behind him. I like, listen, just so you know, I'm signing up once I get back home.
Nice. So use the code. If you're going to do that, use the code PC2020 and save $20 off a sign up.
I think he gave me a better code.
He might have. Okay, whatever. But yeah, no, that's, man, I'm going to tell you, like, talking to him, learning, and here's the thing, like, when you see him talking, it's even different than his course. So you're going to learn stuff And I mean, the basis is the same, but some of the stuff he goes into or like gets on a tangent or a rant about while he was doing, his presentation. And I think the same thing, they actually had to cut him off. They're like, all right, Mark, you've gone an hour over your slotted time. So people got flights to catch because he did it on the last day for us. And,
Wow.
and, and, people were like not wanting to leave because it was such good information. But it's amazing. And just the stuff I've picked up, and just even the little subtleties about like changing the settings on your Google Earth to where it's more realistic. You can almost confidently. It's still going to be overwhelming when you get there, but it's not going to be as overwhelming coming from the Midwest, like where I'm coming from, where I'm a flatlander in Illinois. Because I remember looking at a map and going, "Oh, that's not that bad." Well, it looks pretty steep and pretty aggressive looking at the topo lines, but when you get there, it's like, oh crap, that's going to take me 6 hours to get up there, not 45 minutes like I was thinking. I don't even have enough time to get there if I got up at 2 in the morning, to get there at daybreak. Stuff like that. That just, I mean, super helpful, super helpful. So, what was like your whole thing on that? What was your like? What were you thinking? I mean, it's a lot. Like my head was swimming when he was talking
So
about
yeah,
all that
yeah.
stuff.
So 100%. He went. He just barely scraped the barrel, and it was a lot of information. He probably had 4 hours total, and like hit almost every single instructor that was there went over their time when we just kept pushing the day out,
Nice.
and we would end up starting early the next day to catch up. Um, but he was just scraping the barrel, and I know that I can be more successful out in the woods, coming from the Northeast, going to the West without any inside information. I know that if I go through his program, that I'm going to be able to get to that level where I know pretty confidently that I can go out there and I'm going to be able to almost guaranteed run into elk.
I think that's huge. That right there, I mean, is way more than the price of the course. I mean, the fact that even to get on elk, and then it's up to you to be successful, but to pay what you're paying for the price of that course, to get that information, and look at Mark's beautiful face and that shiny head, while you're learning too. But it's just, to me, it's like, man, and if I can pick out, 4 spots in, 6 different units that I'm going to hit this year in Colorado. And if I don't hit, those first 4 spots and I only hit 3 of them and it just looks crappy and I'm going to go to the next one and I end up getting on elk, that right there is worth the price of admission. I just, it blows my mind that I had no idea about any of this stuff beforehand. And then, going to the summit and doing the course, and like I said, gonna finish it. But I mean, you definitely got to dedicate some time because there's like 25 hours or 26 hours of content that he put into that course.
Yep.
And it, man, in the end though, it's gonna be so worth it. I'm excited because I want to get my first elk real bad. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, so you
I
haven't
have
gotten one either,
I
huh?
haven't put one down yet. No, so this will be my second elk hunt coming up here. So I'm
Yeah, I haven't gotten one yet. I came very, very close. Some lessons were learned. My partner learned some lessons, and he actually lucked out. We actually got him into an elk this last trip. So I'm hoping to go back out there with, some more information and, a better understanding about how we need to work as a team to be able to get things done.
absolutely. No, I think that's awesome. What else was there? Anything else that you thought was like really cool? I heard you guys had an archery course this year. Was that how was that?
Ryan is he just I think he went out there just to torture people with that archery course. Him and Mark. It was 4.5 miles.
Oh,
A lot of it was uphill, and every single shot there wasn't a shot under 40 yards. The longest shot was out to 98.
Whew.
We ranged it. It was supposed to be 100, but it was 98. And everything was like, there was very hard, like you had to touch your foot to the stake. So they had it set up so that it was really hard for you to be in a comfortable position to shoot.
Shooting around limbs and
Sometimes
stuff,
we had
or
shooting around limbs. Sometimes we had to kneel. And me being from the Northeast and having my gyms closed all the last year, I'm like, my heart rate was averaging between like 145 to 190 the whole entire time
that's
we were
awesome.
out there shooting. It was never before in my life have I thought of like, I'm going to quit 3D shooting. And I was up there
That's
like
awesome.
halfway through, and I'm like, but knowing that I came a long way to get there, and knowing that the drive I've always had in the past with everything else I do, I'm like, you got to buck up and drive on. And did lose a few arrows. One time I lost an arrow because I forgot to adjust my sight. I lost one because I was all out of taper room. I think my sight went out to 92 yards, so I was trying to hit that 100 or 98 yard spot. And Robbie Denning was next to me. He's like, just try to hit like the top of his antlers. That'll probably be perfect. So I aimed at the top of his antlers and ended up scraping the back of it.
Oh.
So we ended up losing that. And then I lost one, just completely my mistake. I totally biffed the shot. I had a great time shooting with Robbie Denning from Rockslide.
That would be pretty cool. How was Brian Barney's performance there? I just like, did they do the Beat Brian Barney contest, shooting out to however far?
They did. He's pretty rock solid when it comes to shooting.
Especially a dude with a super short draw length. Like I think he's like 26-inch draw length or something. Like he's way shorter than everybody else as far as that draw length goes, and he's still just lobbing them out there. Like I think he went to 140 was where he was at because we were at Cody's house doing it, and I think that was like up against the edge of the farm there at Cody's, and I think it was like 140 yards or something. It was pretty far. It was definitely cool to watch.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I have never met a more motivating and positive individual as Brian Barney.
Absolutely. The dude is a straight up mountain goat. Like there is absolutely nothing stopping him. And I made a comment to him just joking around, and I said something like, maybe when Brian's about 65 or something, I'll be able to beat him on the mountain. And he looks at me and he goes, I'll still be running that mountain at 65. And I go, yeah, you're right. Who am I kidding?
I don't think I would ever make that bet.
No, it was a dumb one to make, but I just wanted to get his reaction on the whole thing. But no, that dude, he's, I mean, I've never ran an ultra marathon. I've never even run a regular marathon, so I can't attest to any of that. And that dude is always out there. He was telling me before he came to the summit, he was out for 2 days trail running. And it was like, it rained the whole time and there was snow and stuff. And I'm like, what? This dude's freaking crazy. He's like, yeah, my clothes are finally starting to dry out a little bit. And I'm like, oh, man, what did I get myself into? These guys are straight up freaking different planet compared to me. But hopefully, man, we'll get there. So it was definitely good talking to you. It was awesome learning, kind of what your take was on it and what you learned. So before we go, I got to know, though, how about that initial ascent pack?
Oh my God. So, and I was running a Mr. Ranch pack, and I thought that was like perfect pack for me.
I dumped mine
and
ditched it.
And did you?
Oh, I ditched it. I had it. I took it on my elk hunt, and then I did a lot of rucking with it and stuff. And I noticed through the rucking and like the preparation, it made a lot of noise under weight. And you could never quite adjust that load right. And then when you did, and then like when I went to the hunting summit last year was when I was like, man, I'm done with my MR pack, because I was always constantly jacking with the hip belt, the kidney belt, and with the shoulder straps because they never stayed tight. It's just the webbing and the buckles just weren't that good. It drove me nuts, and I was like, "This is the last time I'm ever using this pack." And I came home and started doing research, and a couple people told me they're like, talk to Dennis and Joe, awesome people. You need to talk to them and just kind of get a feel for the company. And that was between the pack and everybody saying how awesome it was and how great of people they were. That was something I just had to try and get behind. And that's what I did. So what was like, I mean, you got to do the virtual fitting with Dennis, I think.
No, he pretty much had everything because I think his stature is pretty similar to
Okay.
mine, so he had everything all fitted out. He said, if you run into any problems, just let me know. So I got it. Um, didn't really need to adjust anything. I put about 40 pounds in the first time. I took my dogs on a 3 mile walk. Got back and I was like, all the weight, like so I have wide shoulders and they kind of come down, and packs usually bother my neck and shoulders. I've always had slight neck and shoulder pain with certain packs, and I'm like, this is great. This didn't even bother my pack at all, my
I
back at all. So then I was like, okay, let's bump it up a little bit. So I had it up to 85 pounds and did another 3 miler. And again, I'm like, this is great.
Yep.
Like it felt so steady. And just like you, I was actually prior to submitting um, my email to you about trying to get out there. Um, I was in the process also looking for another pack through some of the usual top three, Kafaru and Exto and Stone
Mm-hmm.
Glacier, and um, I guess I had heard of Initial Ascent, and I was actually signed up for their email, but I didn't really look into the packs themselves too much. And I honestly think that it, they're going to be a company that's going to be at the top
Yeah.
when when the word gets out there and more people try and more people are keeping an open mind to the other pack companies. They're going to do really, really well. I actually ended up, I think I've spent another $150, just buying accessories and the lid
Nice.
and
So I
pack
haven't
cover.
I haven't bought any accessories yet. Well, I mean, I bought like when I bought my pack, I bought the pocket, and now I kind of want a pocket on the other side because I always keep a tourniquet in the one pocket, and just kind
Yeah.
of like minor first aid tourniquet type stuff, stop the bleed. But now I want another one so I can keep like a spare release in there and some other stuff so I can kind of lighten the load on my bino harness because I've got a lot of crap on my bino harness. But I haven't done like anything else. What'd you buy? Did you buy what'd you get?
So I bought the lid, I bought the lid straps, I bought the rain cover, and I wanted to support them. I really could have probably have gotten a rain cover for cheaper, um, or even had the rain cover from my Mystery Ranch and just used it. But I really wanted to support them as a company because Dennis was awesome. Like him and I went back and forth on Instagram. Um, the the original fitment, what I ran into was he called us, him and I are in betweeners. So his pack belt and the frame are there. He's kind of in between on the pack belt, and the same with me. And I found that I was like, when I had the 100 pounds on, I was like totally maxed out with adjustments.
Yeah.
He's like, we need to go back the next size. So I went ahead and returned that, got it back, got the pack all set up. Um, and then I did end up buying a pouch. But to be honest with you, I am probably going to either pick up the 4K pack or the 6K pack for my elk hunt come this fall.
So I recently bought the 6K bag. And to be honest, I haven't even put it on my frame yet. But I'm probably going to use that. I also have the pannier, which is pretty cool. And it's even what's nice about that is like you don't even need a bag on your frame. You can just use the pannier and the lid, and you've got enough for a day pack and something to haul out meat with. Or if you want to go rucking and, get some pack weight on your back and get some exercise in, that pannier itself will do that, which is pretty cool. I mean, the whole setup. I just watched a video the other day in the email of Diego from Muley Tines, I think. I can't remember. Gosh, I should know that. But anyway, he, like 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, and he carried 100 or 150 pounds on that pack.
I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that is impressive. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. It definitely supports the weight to where you don't feel it on all those pressure points and hot spots, and you don't get like because you're reefing down on your chest strap and getting that where it like pushes up against your your collarbone, and it's a great pack. And I can't say enough. And so it was so cool that I actually got to give one away and let somebody else experience it and have the same kind of feeling I did when I put it on. I think that's so awesome. So huge shout out, Dennis and Joe. Thank you so much for helping out with that giveaway, and I'm glad you like it. So that's pretty
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty
definitely.
cool.
Thank you guys, because that I'm super impressed, and I gotta admit I kind of love the notes a little bit too.
It's awesome.
They sent in every pack.
Every pack.
And honestly, so one of my major hangups, and the reason why I was looking, I'm Mr. Ranch packs are perfectly good. Anybody can use them. They work. One of my hangups was the fact that they weren't made in the USA, especially after the pandemic.
Yep.
So, I kind of wanted to try to get out of that pack this past spring prior to putting in for that contest.
Yeah, that's actually been a goal of mine, is to, and not just go out all at once and spend a ton of money, but to slowly give back, by buying from companies that dedicate their time and their hard work and their effort to doing as much as they can to make a good quality American-made product here. And I think that's pretty cool, and that's important that everybody tries to do that, because we've seen what happens with, the pandemic and shortages and stuff like that. I mean, even I got buddies who ordered rims for their trucks, and they've been waiting forever because they're not made here. It's just crazy things like that you don't realize until, and the fact that, you're paying somebody a decent wage, a hardworking person making a decent wage to make a quality product right here in the United States. And I think that's something we need to look at too. And that's like the 4-low. So I slowly started changing out all my hunting clothes to 4-low. I don't have, a full lineup yet, but over time that's something I'll do, and try and do that with all my other products too.
Yeah, there's not very many clothing companies right now that are making things in the U.S.
Nope. So if you haven't heard of 4-low, that's one you can take a look at. So
I definitely will.
So I appreciate it, man. We've gone an hour just talking about all the good stuff. I think it's so cool.
And I have probably like 45 minutes more worth of stuff to say about that summit.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience for me, and I'm glad you got that experience too, and wanted to give it to somebody that deserved it. And so, I thought it was pretty cool, your reasoning for it, and also, thank you for your service, and especially this day and age, officers aren't exactly getting the respect that they deserve. So I think it's pretty cool, and I'm glad I got to send somebody like you out there. And thank you, man. I appreciate it, and thanks for the interview.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Given the opportunity, and I definitely want to thank Initial Ascent for giving me the pack as well.
Yeah. All right, man. Have a good one.
Hey, you too.
Once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.